private school teachers are now migrating into the public school system because there is a greater disparity in remuneration in that area. On Monday coming, I'll be addressing the Jamaica Association of Independent Schools. And that's one of the topics that we'll be having some conversations around. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, that before us is a real challenge. So how do we address this? While I was at the University of the Virgin Islands, we had a similar challenge. In about the year 2010, if my memory serves me right, our ratio of men to women was about 23% men. 23% men to about 77% women. And the president and I, we decided that we needed to do something about this. And we sat, we brainstormed among ourselves. We decided to call in a select group of young men at the university and get their views and their thoughts and their ideas on it. And so they came and we were able to put together with the leadership of these men enrolled at the university. It was an initial group of about 25 to 30, if my memory serves me right. And they adopted the name Brothers with a Cause. Brothers with a Cause. And Brothers with a Cause built a reputation, for itself. First, by encouraging the men enrolled at the university to stay focused on their studies. Some of them were going in different directions. They were not doing well in their studies. They were being channeled away by women to do other things and to engage in other activities. And so we decided through this group to be able to help to target those. And then we had what is called academic jam. We spoke with the faculty, with student services, through a Center for Student Success. And everyone decided on, between the end of semester and the beginning of exams, we're going to have what's called an academic jam to help our students and our young men in particular, who may have been lagging behind and completing their paper, their research assignment, who may have been lagging behind and grasping a concept in calculus or trigonometry or accounting or what have you, to meet together with faculty, other students, staff, where our office provided sandwiches and drinks and different things. And we did that for about 48 hours. And a significant number of individuals who are falling behind as a result of that initiative, by us showing interest in them, they were able to regain their footing, and many of them succeeded and went on to be graduates of the university. We also reached out to the middle schools and to the elementary schools, and where we set up what was called Junior University, which was a 5-week day program for young men who were troubled. These are some of the young men who didn't have respect for parents, teachers, government, police, anybody. These young men were just around the age of between 11 and 14, 11 and 15. And I could recall our very first attempt at this. It was a 5-week program, but it took us about the first 2 weeks to get these young men to settle down. We had the security officers from their schools there. We had our own security officers, but we were determined that we were going to help these young men. And it almost brought tears to my eyes and to the eyes of my other colleagues when, after 5 weeks, and then having them spend 2 nights in the residence hall, working and living in to see what life as a college student is like, to hear them during the graduation ceremony for them after that 5 weeks, where many of them said, you know, I did not want to come into this. They brought their parents, their mothers, their fathers, their sisters, they were all there. I didn't want to come into this. I kicked up a storm. This was not for me. But I'm so glad that I was able to make the decision and to stay with it. And I'm thankful to my teachers, and they would call out the names of those individuals who were patient with them, who inspired them, who told them that they had worth, they had value to be able to get on to the next level, to be successful. And many of them were there crying, thankful for the opportunity. They went back. These were about to be dropped out of school. And they went back from the 8th grade to 9th grade. And 75% of those who were about to drop out, they were successful in their exams and made it to the next round. 75%. 10% of that 75% was on the high honor roll. And these were students who were flunking out because they were just on their own. They needed that help from another brother, from another individual to show them that they had the potential, and we did that. We also added what we call a Man Up Conference, where we brought all of the high school students together at the university in the Sports and Fitness Center. We would sit over 3,000 of them from the senior levels. The first year, we had them sit in the schools by themselves. You know, they had to come in fully clad in uniforms. Parents had to sign off for them to be there. We had security officers, we had police, we had private security, we had emergency services, ambulance, fire truck, Department of Justice. All of the resources were there to help to share. We had lawyers, numerous men in the community, professionals came out to support year after year to help to mentor and to help those students along. Our numbers moved from 23% to 32% after about 2 years. And then the government changed, and the incoming government, because it was highly supported by the government at that time. And the incoming government had other priorities. But we still continued in other ways. I must say, though, that with the success of Brothers with a Cause, the sisters became quite concerned and said, well, why is there all of this work and interest in the brothers only? What about us? And so we responded with Sisters with Purpose. And then together, they worked with the Brothers with a Cause, and they helped to continue the work of reaching out to our young men. They would go out and counsel with the Department of Human Services, troubled young men in after-school programs to help them to stay focused. Thus, you had more individuals staying in school, graduating from high school, and more coming to the university and staying in the university until they were able to graduate. So going forward at UCC, we'll be taking a similar type approach, and one that we will look at quite closely to make sure it's culturally relevant, to see how we could help to meet the needs of our young men in Jamaica, of those staying in school. And we'll be doing that through a number of programs, through our QDIS program, which is quelling disputes, igniting solutions, to help to ease some of the tension in our schools, in our communities, showing alternative ways for dispute resolution, and being able to show our young men and our young women that there is yet another day, another opportunity beyond today, and things could be different. You know, I was speaking with some colleagues there in Jamaica not too long ago. And as I've said to colleagues here in the Virgin Islands, where I am right now, when we look at our young men fighting with each other, when they, from the various communities, they're just able to see the world through a very small tunnel of vision. This is mine territory. You don't come over here, or else I'm going to get you. Or you don't come over here, or else something will happen to you. But when those two men get on the airplane at any one of our airports, and they go to Miami, they go to New York, to Atlanta, to anywhere, they say, look, we are from the Virgin Islands. We're going to look out for each other.
Is that my version? What does that say?
And it's the same or similar thing. I asked a question to my colleagues there in Jamaica. How often do we hear of violence against violence of Jamaicans against another Jamaican outside of Jamaica? It's a similar thing in the Virgin Islands. It's a similar thing in Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, when we leave our space and we're able to be in a wider pond, we look out for each other. And our question has been, why can't we look out for each other here in our communities? Or why can't we be responsive to each other? What are the other circumstances that surround us that we need to look at more closely so that our responses could be much more meaningful? We had a soft launch of what we refer to as a UCC Ignite Community Impact Fund at the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean. The public launch will occur in October, November of this year. Our new Vice President for Institutional Advancement and Executive Director of the Foundation has just come on board in June, and she's working on putting that together. But part of that is where we will be receiving contributions for specific programs. And there'll be one aspect where we'll be receiving contributions from individuals who are willing to give back, from businesses, from communities, to help our young men, our men in society, to push forward the male initiative at UCC, which will be not only to get more men into the UCC enrollment system, but to have them complete and to reach out to our schools so that we can help more of our boys, our young men, to stay in school. Now, every student, as of September 2023, enrolled at UCC will be contributing. Every student, 100%. Once you're enrolled, you'll be contributing to the UCC Ignite Community Impact Fund. Every student. So that, and there'll be different categories of scholarships to help other students, so that no one would be there receiving and not using of their own resources to help others and to help themselves if they're the ones in need at that particular time. All members of our board will be required to give. We'll be pushing for 100%. All cabinet members, members of the president's cabinet, 100%. And we're pushing our alumni also, because we are concerned. We want to make sure that our students have the opportunity to get over the hump, to be able to succeed, and to be able to do what we can all do collectively, not only for our women, but also for our men. We need our men more in society. We need our men more in leadership roles. We need our men more as mentors, as leaders, as individuals who could help us all to get to the next level. And so I said to this group here this afternoon, if you've been looking for an opportunity to help the young men of Jamaica, look no further. UCC is the place. We'll be reaching out. We'll be ensuring that those resources will be used wisely to advance the cause of our society. We need to do more within the context of our societies to be able to help us to get to the next level. The whole matter of making sure that as we learn as men in smaller bites, while being mindful of the community pressure that's on us to take care of our families, to be the persons who will stand up and be strong, and to be the ones that can give us the opportunity to be able to move forward in a meaningful way. We need to do so, and do so now. You know, one of the things someone said to me the other day, and I was speaking, I can't remember where, but they indicated and made an interesting statement from the standpoint of domestic violence. There was a particular case, it may have been on the news, and the person referred to it, of where the man was being harassed by a female for an extended period of time. He made complaints even to law enforcement, but they didn't take him on. They laughed at him, said, man, you're a man, you know, you come in here reporting that this person is abusing you, and, you know, and it continued and continued until it got to a point where he snapped. And I think he hit the female. And as she responded and said, look, this is what happened. Of course, the police officers were there. They booked him, okay? And then he was found guilty of domestic violence, even though he was being abused himself for a long period of time. But because he was what? Male, man, you should know how to take care of this. We don't have to come to defend you. But it's a reality, colleagues. When we look at life and all that's around us, we have opportunities to grow, to help each other, to be able to ensure that people, especially young men, remain in school, to ensure that they have the opportunity to be the best that they could be. As we look at this forum here today, I'm seeing so many men. I've seen one or two women, and welcome to the group, women. We're glad that you're here. But the reality is, we all have a role and a responsibility. I talk with people at UCC all the time. Since I've been there just a few months now, I started in September of last year. So it's about maybe 9-10 months that I've been at UCC. We have implemented a tuition remission policy where every member or every staff member, every faculty member has the opportunity of taking courses at UCC tuition free. And not only for the staff member, the employee, the faculty, but also their spouse and also their dependents up to the age of, I think it's either 23 or 26. I can't remember, based on the laws of Jamaica. And many of these individuals are taking advantage of it. And as I say to my colleagues there, my drivers, and people who work as office assistants. They're now enrolled. That's the custodian, the janitors. They're now enrolled in opportunities in small ways to help them to get to the next level. And they're now bringing their children whom they were worried about. How could we help them? How could I get my son and my daughter through college? This is an opportunity now. They just have to pay some fees, yes, but the tuition is on the university as a benefit. We have a great opportunity to stand firm in our beliefs, but at the same time, as people of faith, we also have the opportunity to remember that we are responsible for those who God placed in our paths, to be able to assist in any way possible, to reach out and to see how they are going to respond to what we will say or do. How would our brothers and sisters, but in particular our brothers, our young brothers, how could we encourage them more through our families, through programs, through initiatives to remain grounded and focused, so that they could be well-meaning and solid leaders of our communities moving into the future. We need more young men. We need more men to step up to the plate. You know, I've seen you from a distance, Brother Holmes, Mr. Holmes, and your young men. I think it is two of them. Am I correct?
Yes, I have two sons, 128 and 122.
That is correct. And I see them singing, okay, and being engaged in activities as they move forward, because they have a responsibility also to share with others. And it's the same thing I say to my son, who is an attorney in Washington, D.C. area, that you have a responsibility. And he gives of his service pro bono to go out into communities and talk with young men also, and help them to stay focused and let them know that life is not just what they're seeing before them, that there are greater opportunities. Take off the blinders, see the world and super focus, so that together we can help to make an impact on another brother's life. So I think I'll stop here for now, and we can have questions and conversations, and I'll be happy to learn from you also, okay, of your wisdom. I say to people all the time, the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know, because knowledge is so great. It increases so rapidly that we all need each other to be able to have conversations. It's not where any one of us should be or even be thinking about showing up the other brother. We are here for each other, and we learn from each other every day. And even in my path, as we go forward with research, with information, with strategies, with techniques to bring initiatives to the fore, there is still one solid business strategy that I do not leave behind. And I'm not ashamed to say, I even said it on, I can't remember the name of the program with Archibald Gordon on Sunday afternoons on TVJ Profile, right? That my greatest business strategy is prayer. Yes, we're going to plan. We're going to do all of the research that we need to do. We're going to strategize. We're going to do what's necessary to bring about the best possible result. but I'm on my knees every day, placing these before God and say, Lord, these are in your hands. If it's your will for these things to happen, they will. If not, your will be done. Because when you close a window, you open a door. You are given a new direction to allow us to move forward. So thank you. And we look forward to our further conversation.
Prof, I really want to thank you for the engagement that you have just set for us. And I'm sure that the ladies and gentlemen on the platform will have quite a few questions. We, in fact, have a rather active chat going on even as you spoke. And so I'm sure that the thoughts will come out. Let me set the tone, because this is personal for me, Prof. And I want to start where you were going towards the end of your presentation. So I am from a broken home where my Seventh-day Adventist father, who was a deacon in the church, was not a father to me. And my mother had to father me. And in my broken home, my mother's God and my father's God were diametrically opposed. One was evil, one was kind and gracious. And I had a dilemma as a young man growing up. Which of these gods do I go to? Which do I take on in my life? Which one do I represent? Which one do I follow? God in his Holy Spirit caused me to choose my mother's God, because that's really who he was and is. But here is my challenge to you, Prof. As you have mentioned in your own experience, you have more female teachers even in the all-boys schools. You have more women in the university. You have more women leading out in the Sabbath school. My wife is the head of the junior division, and she probably has one or two men. All the others are women. And interestingly, she'll probably tell you that she has more girls coming to Sabbath school than she has boys coming to Sabbath school. So, and this is replicated across society. And then you said that right there at UCC, 99% of your applicants are women for all of the positions. So why is this personal to me? Because I chose my mother's God, and I made a decision that I am going to parent my boys according to my mother's God, but to teach them to be godly men. So this is personal for me. And I wanted girls, and God gave me boys. And I think he knows why, and I know why. Because I needed to stop the Holmes negative behavior on my watch and start a new trend with these two boys. And by God's help, Paul and I are trying to do that. So here's my question. How do we address boys learning? How do we encourage boys to be themselves while learning according to how they are naturally bent? And while you think about that answer, I am being guided by what I understand Proverbs to be when it says, train up a child in the way he or she should go. I am convinced, Prof, that boys learn differently from girls. I am convinced that my two boys learn differently. I am convinced that every child has a natural bent. And the proper education is to understand the bent of your child and train them according to that way. This is how Paul and I have been effective, because we understand very early that our boys were creative. And so we did creative things to help them to become who they are. But in our general system, Prof, we have one brush for everything. Boys and girls come to class and they're given the same subject. They're given the same evaluation instrument. They're given the same assessment protocols, and we expect them to come out differently. Help us to understand, what do we need to do, Prof? A, to understand how boys and girls learn, B, to understand our children's natural bent, and then C, how do we fix education to respond to that?
Thank you, my brother. Very, very good question. Deep and powerful. You know, one of the whole items that concern many people is a matter of standardization. Over the years, and you would see in certain places, certain areas of the United States right now, some institutions accept enrollees into their institutions, new students, without SAT scores or ACT scores. Within the Caribbean region, again, we have the focus. We have CXC, CSEC. In order to get in, you must have X number of subjects, including English and math. If you don't have these, well, then you are a second tier, as it were, and would need to get some additional developmental education or continuing education to bring you up to speed. Granted as that may be, we note that within the Caribbean region, there has been a challenge over the years. We've had for many years, University of the West Indies, where we now are they're celebrating 75 years this year. I was with Professor Beckles, my good friend and colleague, who is a vice chancellor of UE. And we share these similar thoughts and we talk about them, because even within the context of our region, we are still, quote unquote, as the words he would use, we are still at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to higher education or tertiary education or people being exposed. Because we are still down like between 12 and 15% across CARICOM. When you have some countries, 65, 75, 80%. So we need, as we said, to work collaboratively with each other. Both of us agree, and the other colleagues, as I said to other colleagues, across the Association of Caribbean Tertiary Institutions, ACTI, of which I serve as first vice president, that we need to collaborate together for the interest of our people, the interest of our communities. We need to look differently at how people learn and do more research in those areas so that we could advise our governments, our policymakers, to make adjustments for the differences that exist between male and female and how both sexes learn. And so it's important for us to recognize the aspects that exist. And you are absolutely correct when you said, you noted the creativity in your boys from a very early age. And it's a reality. They like to play with things, put things together, okay? And we can use those aspects to teach so many different lessons. Several years ago, I recall where there were a number of individuals who wanted to get into a culinary arts program at another institution where I served as an administrator. But at the same time, they did not have, quote unquote, the entry requirements. And they didn't have the math or the English or what have you. But we came up with a creative approach where through portion control, we were able to teach math to those students who were cooking, who were preparing meals, who turned out to be top-notch chefs. And they were able to learn the math concepts through portion control. If we are going to sell this plate of food for X dollars, we have to look at the overall cost. What's the cost to purchase it? What's the cost to prepare it? What's your overhead cost? What's your cost to pay for labor and still to make a profit? And many of those individuals are running successful businesses of their own even today, but they couldn't understand that earlier. So we said, look, let's take a different approach. And as a result of that different approach, they were able to succeed and to be meaningful contributors to the economy even today in their particular location. So we need to understand that, and we need to place more emphasis on the differences that exist. I know that there are different schools in some areas that may use an open learning type approach. There are different types of nomenclature that may be used for the different approaches. And we won't get into all that right now. But the fact remains, the more we are able to meet our students, our boys in particular, where they are, and to help them based on our better understanding of them to get over the hump. Now we'll be doing, as we build out further research capacity at UCC, I've said to our folk, a lot of our research must be relevant to our society. People must feel a difference and see a difference in their lives, their quality of life, their quality of living as a result of the interaction that we are having and the impact that our research will have on our communities across Jamaica and around the region. So laying hold of those differences is going to be very important. And we need to begin to teach those differences. Two teachers, right now, we have a number of requests from individuals. We don't have an education program at UCC, but we are right now developing a teacher certification program. For there are many individuals now who have their degree, their master's degree, or their doctorate in another area, whether it's chemistry or it's physics, but now they want to get into teaching. But they need to learn about pedagogy, classroom management, lesson preparation, and all of these different things. We'll do all of that between 6 to 9 months, which is a short certification course that will give them the skills that they need to get out there. And part of that, as I'll be saying to our provost and the deans, working together to put that program together, we need to pay close attention to the differences that exist among males and females, so that as these teachers go out there, it's a multifaceted approach, my brother and sister, to be able to help us to get there. We need to be able to encourage our parents also, and have workshops and seminars for our parents to look at parenting and how do we bring up our boys. Don't just leave them to languish on their own. We need to have them under heavy manners at times, and to let them know what is required. It doesn't mean that we have to be spanking them, as it were, because the research even done there in Jamaica by Professor Gale and others at UE and others at UTEC indicate that if spanking occurs, the young man is spanked significantly more times than the girl. So we have to look at a multifaceted approach, and we need each other to make this happen.
Thank you for that, Prof. You're at the other end of the spectrum. You're trying to fix it from an educational and instructional point of view, but you also spoke to the earlier part, which is the parenting point of view. And that's really where it needs to begin. But you can only speak from your platform because you have no control of the parents, but we get the point. There are two hands up and there's a question in the chat. And so I'm going to go first to Dr. Carrington and then Marcel, and then we're going to go to the question in the chat, which has been posted on behalf of Professor Michael Allen. Selwyn?
Thank you very much, Errol. And thank you, Professor, for the wonderful presentation that you've made so far. I am indeed impressed by that. However, we live, well, a lot of us here live in the United States. Based on how should I say this, extrapolations from the interventions that you have done in the Virgin Islands and probably in Jamaica also. What can we learn from those that will benefit us here in this country? Because African Americans in the United States have a really hard time. And as you know, we have dismal performances also from high school dropout rates to college and terminal degree status. That's a very difficult challenge for us here in the United States also. And I want to go back a little bit to the early part, as Dr. Holmes calls it, Errol. Because I personally believe that interventions need to begin early. And if we don't start interventions from early, we are not going to have that mindset created in our young people, especially our young men, to cause them to aim high in future. And many of our young men are destroyed from their youth because of even the spankings that they get. And they're deterred from higher education. They go think it take too long, it costs too much, whatever the case may be. And also not only at our homes, but in our churches, we also suffer from that inability to get over to the young people from, like you said yourself, from the Sabbath school peers and on upward, the challenges that they have. What's your thoughts on how we can sort of help to fix that at home, at school, at play?
All right, thank you. Very, very good question. It is said that life before the age of 7 determines character. And our Catholic brothers and sisters will say to us, give us your child up to the age of 7. And their character will be determined by the time they leave us after the age of 7. And it is a reality, colleagues. The early years of any child, the formative years, are extremely, extremely important to them, their well-being, and what the future will look like. Because what's etched in their minds from that moment is going to stay with them throughout the rest of their life. And so whether it's in Sabbath school, where we have our young children, once they've been dedicated and they're coming out with their parents, we should be able to be presenting approaches that will show them the value of life, to build character, to be honest, to be kind, to be loving, to be respectful, to have an open mind, and to try to explore and to learn as much as they possibly can at every stage of their life. And once that initial aspect has been placed within the mind of our children, it positions them to build on that, because it gives them the courage. You know, in conversations, I was speaking with a colleague one day, and he reminded me that in conversations, you get the truth from someone age 7 and under, and age 65, 68 and above. All the rest in between, we're going to come up with a whole lot of fluff, as it were, to justify what we are saying and put it in politically correct ways. But the real McCoy, the real truth of matters come from a child. It's like, I saw something just the other day, and I know my father, he a local preacher, first elder in church for many years, used to give this illustration where the mother of the child had a friend who lived next door and would come and visit ever so often. And then as she would leave, her mother would say, "Look at that woman. She's a two-faced woman." So the next time she came and her mother wasn't there, the child jumped up in the lap of her mother's friend and started to turn her face. And she said, well, what happened? What are you looking for? She said, Mommy said that you're a two-faced woman. Okay. Now that's the truth. She was repeating what she learned, and she was saying exactly what the situation was at that particular time. There are some individuals who feel that in the form of Donald Trump, that he's saying what a vast majority of Americans are not saying. Okay, whether it is so or not, that's debatable. But the fact remains that we need to be mindful and truthful with each other. Even at times I may sit in meetings, whether it's a board meeting or resolving issues, and people are just beating around the bush without saying in a gentle, honest, open, specific way exactly what the issues are. Our issues today facing us, gentlemen and lady, is an issue of challenge in our population, in our homes, in our families, with our men and with our women. So getting back to your question, sir, being able to meet them at that early age and to inspire them, serve as a mentor, let them know that they have the capacity, and encourage them even more along the way to see that they can also make it. There will be challenges, there will be difficult situations, and none of us, all of us on this platform today, are where we are, not because so much so of a flowery bed of ease. We went through tough and difficult times, challenging situations, situations that have molded us and allow us to be who we are. And if we are able to tell our young men, yes, we understand, we get it. You know, just yesterday, I was on the campus of UVI. You stopped by there just yesterday. I arrived back in the Virgin Islands on Thursday evening and stopped by to see some of my former colleagues. And a young man just rushed up to me. You know, he's not an employee there, but I've known him for many years as a young boy, very young, from the age of either 2 or 3. And he said, look, I'm so glad to see you. He ran to me, grabbed me, he hugged me, you know, gave me a real solid bear hug because he's a big fellow now. And said, look, man, thank you so much for being an example and a role model for me. I am glad to see you. I know what you told me, even was a young fellow. My mother was single, okay? And as you would visit from time to time as a pastor at that particular time, you would encourage and you will tell me what I need to do to stay on the straight and narrow. And even though I strayed a little bit in life, and I went out and I was doing some things, I said, man, it was not comfortable. That voice was still there. It was still there. And in the height of playing in a music performance in a dance hall, this is what he's telling me. I'm doing this for the first time. Says, look, something just came over me. You are not in the right place. You need to stop. And he got a pain, he said, in his stomach, and it won't go away. He told the band leader, listen, I need to leave. This isn't for me. He said, look, man, you can't leave. You're the lead keyboardist here. You're the man. He said, no, I have to leave. He plugged out his stuff and left. And at that time, he was even having challenges in his own home with his wife. She was there at home crying and praying for him. And he went home and got his life back together. He says, look, I've been looking for your number, but I couldn't find it. But I'm so glad that you are here for me to tell you thank you for what you did for me in those early days. He was just 3 years old. And he remembered everything over those years when we served in that area. And now he is a mature man. He's married with his own family and is doing very well as a computer technician. But he was able to come, and I was rushing to another engagement, but I couldn't leave the brother there. He was full, okay, with wanting and overflowing, brimming over. I want to share with you and to thank you. We stayed there talking for about half an hour before he was satisfied, and we were able to part to move on to another. People look at us when we don't even know. They listen to us, gentlemen, when we don't even know. Sometimes people tell me, look, I know where you live. I know when you leave home, when you reach home, what you do here and what you do there. I don't know. But people watch us all the time. And we are making an impact, whether for good or otherwise.
Professor Haldane, Marcel is next, followed by Len. But just because of where you ended, I just want to bring the group's attention to the last point in the chat of the question that is to be posed by Professor Michael Allen. And among the things he said in the last paragraph is referring to the fact that boys and girls learn differently. He says, boys who are scholarly, athletic, and well-adjusted are so because they get strong doses of positive male influence outside of school rather than because of it. And you would not have had the benefit, Professor Davies, of the excellent daily devotionals that are done by Selwyn Carrington on this platform. But it was Selwyn who caused you to be here this week, because Selwyn wrote a devotional this week, and that devotional fired a spark inside of me. And that spark linked with the three things that I said to you: your speech on Sunday, the Educate report, the challenges of learning between boys and girls, and the things that we're talking about today. All of these things help to set the context for this. And on this platform, we were able to point out, I was able to point out that my own journey has helped me to become a mature, balanced man because of friends like Marcel, of friends like Murphy, who is on this platform, of counselors like Patrick Rutherford and others who have helped me in my journey. So, and one of the things Selwyn said is that men need men. So we really need to understand how men operate, how boys operate, and how we can work with the bent that are in them to help them to become all that God wants them to be. And I want to thank you for that response. Marcel, and then Len.
Professor Davies,
Yes.
thank you very much. I don't know if you can see, but I have a list that I was making here as you were speaking, albeit on used envelope, because there are so many things I want to put, but I cannot take up all the entire program. But there's one thing that I wanted to ask you about, and it's the okay. I'm going to mention a few of them. The role of popular culture. I have nephews. One of them who is into DJing and everything, and for him that's the world, and that's where the money is, and that's where he tells he has two sons, and he encourages his two sons, hey, it's all about money, it's all about business, it's all about making that money. So education is placed on the back burner, really. So that's one. What's the word I'm looking for? The system that Germany has of apprenticeship. I don't know how you could include that in a more formal educational setting, because in Germany every young boy or every boy has to go through a period of apprenticeship, whether it's in business, medicine, whatever field that they're interested in. They go through these areas where they can shadow or learn in that process. It's interesting because a colleague of ours, Dr. Gilbert, he is not on today, but yesterday he posted a photograph of himself, who is a surgeon in Montego Bay, with his son in surgery with him for the first time. And that photograph is priceless. And his son will always, his son is actually doing medicine already. So those are two things. I'm going to just list them off. Online sharing. How can a group like this, who have qualified men who potentially can be teachers, professors in your university, access the online portal so that they don't have to come to Jamaica to teach, but they can do a teaching program from here. So that's another thing. Also, talk to us about your accreditation. How accredited is your organization? A certification or a qualification from your organization. How well does it travel abroad? How well does it travel throughout the Caribbean? And then finally, how can a group of men, such as Friends Talking, be facilitators, be mentors to support the work that you're doing in your organization? Sorry, I know it's a lot of things, but I hope you.
Okay. All right, fine. No, that's
I guess
fine. And
this will be the last question before we close off today, because there's no. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Yeah. I try to capture on my phone here.
Yeah.
The whole matter of education being on the back burner, when you look at the type of culture that surrounds us right now, is a reality, and it has been around for quite some time. I recall even here in the Virgin Islands and in the else and other places, where a young man would say, well, why should I go to college when I can go to the bank and get a loan once I am working, and I can purchase a truck or some piece of heavy equipment, and I can make in 2 days or 3 days what you make, Mr. President, in a month. So why would I put myself through all of that? But my response usually is, you may lose that truck or that business that you have built, but how do you get to make a living and move on and lead a meaningful life without the understanding of what's around you more from a more formal educational standpoint? So we need, even though many people choose to do that, what we have now at UCC is quite a number of people. About 80% of our more than 5,000 students right now are people who are working. They're adults in the workplace, but they've been in the workplace without a qualification. And they are now coming to receive the qualification to help them to get to the next level. So even though they may have made that decision initially, they have seen the value of the qualification, and thus they are moving in that direction. Yes, it is a new age, and people see what's happening. But when you look at the reality, as I said, I was interviewed on Smile Jamaica. I think it was sometime last week. I only had less than 12 hours notice that I was supposed to appear there. And we were talking about the whole matter of STEM education. And I told the interviewer that it is important, and what I'd like to do is to add an A there, so we have STEAM education to include arts. because there is so much in the line of arts in Jamaica that we do not need, or we should not sideline that aspect of the culture of such a great nation, such a great country. But we must help to inspire it even more, to bring others along. She agreed with me fully. And they said that we need to be doing more in these areas to help our population grow and to develop and to be at the level where they need to be. It's an opportunity to encourage them. Yes, my son, he's an attorney, but he likes music also. Okay. So in addition to being an attorney within the context of his day job, which keeps him into long days and nights, he still likes to get onto his music equipment and make jingles for other establishments and other things like that. As a real hobby, he enjoys doing that. And he does it, is set up as a separate entity, a separate business for him. But his core thing is his work and reaching out to other young men to help to inspire them. On the matter of apprenticeship, it is very, very important. I serve as a member of the National Advisory Council for Work Skills Jamaica. And this year and next year, there'll be 4 study tours. I missed the one in May. I was actually booked. I had hotel reservations, airline reservations, but then our accrediting body was coming to campus, and the date for them to be there clashed with the time that I was going to be away. So I could not be away as president while our regulators were on campus. I needed to be there. So I had to cancel out from that. But our next trip will be to Germany sometime later on this year, and then to Singapore and Australia, looking along with Heart Trust at the apprenticeship programs, work skills, to be able to show the importance of the work of using one's hands and apprenticeship program, so that our young men and young women could realize that there is great value in what they do. Heart Trust had their apprenticeship program and work skills competition just a couple of months ago, and I had the opportunity of being there. They gave me a full tour upon my arrival, took videos, photographs, and all the rest for promotional activities moving forward, and also did an ad for us to be able to ensure that as we reach out to our young men and women, that they'll see the value and the importance of skills within the context of our economy. Germany, you are correct. Norway, Singapore, and so many other nations that are ranking high among the top 10. This is the approach that they have used in order to get there. This is what built their nations and made them strong. And we need to look more closely at what they do, so that as we build our programs, we will be relevant also. From the standpoint of accreditation, if I remember all of them off the bat, UCC is accredited by the University Council of Jamaica, which is recognized globally. So our credentials are recognized globally anywhere around the world. We also have UK accreditation through ASIC from the United Kingdom. And we're in the process of going through now and getting started. We've had initial conversations with our US accreditation, and that should commence within the next few months. We'll submit everything by the beginning of October of this year. So what you receive at UCC is top-notch. It's accepted anywhere around the world, and it is something that we are proud of, and we'll continue to grow and to expand. We work with various institutions around the world. Just a few weeks ago, I signed an agreement with other colleagues, another colleague institution in Canada to do some work for major companies there in Jamaica through UCC. We are expanding to Africa, to Europe, and to a number of other destinations across the Caribbean. Our goal is to ensure that as we provide educational opportunities to those in our sphere, that we do so in a way that will really and truly impact their lives so that they can see a difference. I believe a lot in economic advancement. I serve as a member of the board of the IEDC there in Washington, D.C. That's the International Economic Development Council. And as I said to my colleagues at IEDC, our certification should not just be for us within the US and Canada. It has to come out to the rest of the world, and they agreed. And right now we are going through that process to offer those certifications in Jamaica and across the Caribbean region through UCC. We are doing so through the Certified Public Manager Program, also through the anti-money laundering and financial crimes programs that we offer with worldwide recognition for our certification. So that's our goal, to be responsive to the needs of people, to be responsive to the needs of society. Yes, we still have our traditional programs that people get into, but for us, it's more innovation, entrepreneurship, leadership, AI, and all of those areas that we'll be talking about. And very soon, we'll be announcing some additional doctoral degree programs that will be more within the frame of where we are in technology, in artificial intelligence, and such like moving forward. I hope I covered everything: accreditation, French talking.
There was one last section that Marcel asked for, and he was alluding to the fact that there are several professionals who are members of of French talking, and wondered how could they partner with you to perhaps teach long distance.
Oh, sure, certainly.
Or to mentor.
Right, we are certainly open to that, and as we go forward right now, I'm looking for a special assistant to the president for economic advancement and community engagement that will be leading our Mail Initiative program, as well as a slew of other initiatives in the office of the program of the president. And we'll be able to assist through that vein, even through teaching on our faculty right now. We have faculty from the United States, from Jamaica, the Caribbean, in Canada, in the UK, in Pakistan, in India, and other parts of the world. So we are global in our reach, global in our instruction, and you have that full opportunity. Once we are able to connect, I'll pass that information on to our provost and VP for academic affairs, who together with our deans would be able to reach out, and where you can submit your CVs, and we'll be more than happy to have individuals with a cross-section of experience and exposure helping our students and our young men in particular. Through the mentoring, we will be developing that. We do not have that on as yet, but it's one of the programs that we'll be bringing on stream in the not too distant future.
Thank you so much for that response. Len was next, but he has graciously allowed me to have the only question that has come from our female audience today. My wife is on, and Wendy A is on, and Wendy has a series of comments she's made in the chat, but she also wants to ask a question. So we're going to have Wendy ask her question at this point, and then we go to Len, who has been so gracious and patient. He will come up after Wendy. Wendy, over to you.
Thank you, Len. And also thank you, Dr. Davies. This was very enlightening. Before I ask my question, I just wanted to make a couple of comments, just like Marcel did. I'm following his example. So one of my comments is that I have two older brothers, and both of them are well accomplished, praise God. One of them is a middle manager who frequently comments that he finds it interesting and peculiar that even though girls excel in school and do so much better than boys, when we get into the workplace, men take off. And I don't know if that's because of the good old boys club or because men just do better once they're more mature. But when you look at the leaders, at least in the Western Hemisphere, we generally see that women struggle against a glass ceiling. So I just wanted to mention that because I'm in some ways, having difficulty being sympathetic to this problem, but not in all ways, in some ways. The other thing I wanted to mention in my own life, what I've observed, my late father was highly successful. He had a PhD in physics, but he also had a mother and grandmother who served him hand and foot in his youth. And then in his adult life, he had a wife who served him dutifully without being allowed any ambition of her own. So sure, he was successful. Men were successful in those days because back in those days, women were, sorry to say, but it's the truth, women were servants. So who wouldn't be successful back in those days? Now we're in a new millennium, we're in a new era, and it's sort of every man and woman for herself and himself. I'm not sure that that's necessarily a good thing, but I do know that if I had somebody who was taking care of everything for me at home, I'd be able to go a lot further at work too. And then lastly, I just wanted to say to Carlo that, Carlo, the harshness of a lot of the women that you talked about is very interesting. It's an interesting topic, and it's probably a good one for another Friends Talking. I'd love to be a part of that to kind of figure out why have so many women become so aggressive in your observation and in the observation of many men. Dr. Davies, where are the fathers? That is my question. I know the enemy is attacking families, and so I shouldn't be surprised, but in all of this, where are the fathers?
Very, very good question. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Yeah, and I'm just I've been speaking all the time, so I didn't get the chance to look at the chat and to see the comments there. So
I'm managing the chat for you, Professor Davies.
Right. Okay. So it is a reality. Sorry. Most of our fathers and men, and I think whether I said it earlier or it may have been just after church today, someone asked me a similar type question about men and fathers, and I responded that in a number of cases, quite a number of our men are either incarcerated or in the cemetery, and the few that remain, a significant percentage are not really focused on leading meaningful lives.
Yeah.
It is quite easy and much easier. One of the challenges right now is the whole matter of scamming. And most of the people engaged in that, they're between the ages of 17 and 25, okay? And they're just using phones, okay? Technology. They are technology gurus. And they tend to prey more on senior citizens who tend to be indoors more during the course of the day. And who would have worked their lives to accumulate, some form of wealth that they're managing. But then when they're told that, well, you know, you've won X dollars, and within the lottery, your name has come up, and we are here to give you that money, but we need to get an account in which we could deposit the funds. Once they give their information, then the next thing you know, that they're cleaned out. Just last year, from one state alone, scamming amounted for about $42 million US. Okay, it is a reality. So the men are not where we would need our men to be. There are fewer men. Even when we look around the world, look at the war in Russia right now. In Russia, men die on an average of about 50 to 55 years. That's the average age of men in Russia. And it's believed that maybe they drink a bit too much vodka and thus die at a younger age. And women live much older, on the average another 20 to 25 years in Russia. In Japan, you have an aging population, but they try to refrain from allowing people from outside of Japan to come in. They may only allow or naturalize just a few hundred people annually, as opposed to thousands that occur in the US at the same time. But there is a dearth for men. And of course, yes, there are many men who are late bloomers, or who are not as focused in their early days as in their latter days. They may not do well in school. Look at my own experience. I say to people, my own experience. Initially, as a young man, I was not as serious as I should have been. I had a teacher one day in a class. I was doing Latin. That's several years ago. And there was one particular concept that I did not catch. And the teacher said to me, look, you will never amount to anything. And then I had another teacher who said to me, you will never make it. But then I took what they said to me as a stepping stone. I said, you are not going to tell me that I'm not going to make it. I was determined to show those teachers that Haldane Davies was a person of value, a person of worth. I had the opportunity of going through, finishing my bachelor's, my master's, my doctoral PhD studies, and going back and meeting those individuals and helping them along the way without saying to them, look, because of what you did, I am here rubbing it in your face. No, that's not for me to say. That what they did for me was to encourage me, to propel me. I was a late bloomer. I was not as serious as I should have been when I was 14, 15, 16. But later on, that seriousness got to me. I buckled down. I was able to move forward in accomplishing those particular milestones. So we need more men, yes, but we need to look at our socialization practices, as I said earlier. And I saw someone said in the chat that these days some of our females are being raised to be tough also and rough. And I see quite a bit of that also. Okay, where you would encounter some women who are just as tough or even more as some men, especially when you get to the area of law enforcement, and they are called upon in a situation. They can change in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. That soft person becomes hard and cold and ready to take action at any moment to be able to defend themselves as well as others. So there's quite a lot that is challenging us in our communities today. And there's not one solution. It's going to take all of us. As I listen to colleagues, even the matter of crime and violence, it's a matter of us working together. It's not only the home, the church, and the community. It's our parliamentarians, our lawmakers, in having the guts to pass the appropriate legislation and the courage without feeling that they're going to lose votes and not get back in. It's the judiciary to understand the process of moving from where we are to where we desire to be. It's having the appropriate laws in place to know that, well, look, if a crime is committed in the eastern part of the country, that person could be fingerprinted and the fingerprints should not expire, so that they'll only be good for a certain period of time based on the warrant that's issued. So our laws, some of our laws are somewhat archaic, and those would need to be brought up to speed, to be modernized, and for us to have a more comprehensive approach to our society. We are in transition every day, and there are issues that we face. I have the opportunity at times and being in various conversations that of a high level of things that I can't say, okay, outside of those conversations. But where there's life, there is hope. We don't give up. We're not giving up on each other. As believers, we know that we are living in challenging times. The Bible tells us that these times will be upon us, and they're going to be upon us even more and more as we go into the future. But we must still stay the course and do our part, because we are called upon by Almighty God to stand firm and to do what's needed and what's necessary to help our brothers and our sisters along the way. We are not going to make it to that home by ourselves, but because of our relationship with Him, we're going to be reaching out to others and giving of ourselves, giving of our service, giving of our resources, because the more we give, the more God gives us to give, and He will be there to bless us continuously.
Thank you so much, Dr. Davies. To wrap up now, we're going to have Len ask his question, and we are going to be winding down. We have about perhaps another 5-10 minutes before we wrap up. So Len, over to you, my brother. You've been most patient.
Unmute. Thank you. Thank you. I have really 3 short little questions. The first one, I put in the chat already. How does the lack of men in higher education translate to other cultures? Is it only we're seeing this in our culture here, Caribbean, African Americans? Or is it in Europe? Is it in Asians? Is it everywhere else? Is it around the world? Secondly, do you foresee that these little micro-stacking courses will become the norm and classic education as we know it goes out the door, the college education? And thirdly, I just want to kind of make a comment. When I was in doing my optometry, there's an African guy that I met in my class. He was in my class, was there for only 2 semesters, and he left and he went on to another to do regular medicine. But something I learned from him, his way of doing, he was older, he was almost 40. And he's studying and focusing and then getting ready to review together. He would say, quiet, 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 you guys are rushing to it. He says, okay, just let's go downstairs and play a game of pool. Let's go play pool first. And we'll go downstairs and we start playing the pool. And I'll say, okay, just one game. He says, okay, let's do 2 or 3 and we'll start playing. But while we're playing the pool, we don't talk about pool at all. It's about the subject we just studied. And so Okay, how many layers of the cornea? Boom. Okay, the retina. And we're going through these things just completely oblivious to the game. We don't even know who won or lost. We just play the game. And I found that every time I did that, it stuck with me. Over the material again. And I realized that the way he learns is different. And I've never tried learning that way because I've always been taught you sit down, you study and memorize it. And so I incorporated that in some of the ways I learn. And I'm wondering if that's happening with a lot of our boys right now, because we don't allow for the difference in learning, especially, I don't know if it's boys or it's African. And that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to figure out what it is truly that caused that type of learning. That's my question.
Right.
I don't want to add more, but I'll cut it there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Lenny, for the questions there. The whole matter of learning is unique to each individual. People approach learning from different perspectives. In some jurisdictions, it's different. It's like doing business. In the Western world, we believe in flying in, making a business decision and flying out that same afternoon, and making sure that we leave with an agreement signed. In the East, it's a different story, okay? You go in, you fly into China to conduct business. Your Chinese partner is not gonna, first of all, you do not go to conduct business, fly in and fly out. No, you plan to stay for several days, maybe 5 days, 7 days, as the case may be. And for the first few days, it's just talk and interaction, nothing about the business deal or anything like that. The brothers and the sisters, they want to get to know you. Is this person someone that's trustworthy, with whom I can do business? Is this person going to be a good partner for me? And then toward the end of the last day, coming down to the end, well, let's talk business. I think this is something we can do. So let's now sign on the dotted lines. Okay? It is a different approach. I had quite an interesting experience. I visited two businesses and businessmen in Jamaica not too long ago. And one was ready to do business right away. And another from a different culture wanted to sit down and talk. Oh, sorry, there were three of them. Another from a different culture wanted to sit down and talk a little bit, and then we can get into business. And a third from a different culture, we went straight to have tea. Okay, we went to drink tea. He brewed the tea, took care of everything, served us, those who were along with me, and we sat down, just talking generally about life, looking at some photos and different things. And then in the last 10 minutes, said, okay, yes, we're going to work together. We know this is fine. And we were able to move forward from there. Okay? People do things differently based on their cultural orientation. So it is always good, as I say to colleagues in the West, and even when I was at UVI, said, look, any study that we did at the University of the Virgin Islands that came through my office, we looked at it from a global perspective. We did not just look at it from the Western perspective. I say, let's see what's happening in New Zealand, what's happening in Germany, what's happening in Finland, what's happening in Singapore, in other parts of the world, how they're having such great success in these areas. What could we learn from them that could be brought into our understanding and our planning that will fit well for us to help us to get from where we are to where we desire to be. So learning occurs differently from place to place. Here in the Caribbean region, usually within the context of the Western understanding, is a rote learning. Here's what we want you to learn. These are the requirements. You memorize. We're going to test you on these. And if you must pass at a certain level, or if it's not at a certain level, then you failed. And so we leave so many people out in the cold because we are not able to have other approaches for them. We provide to some of our students. There are some students who have examination anxiety. They know the information, they know the stuff, but to get into a room and sit down with other students, or even if they are doing it remotely on their own, knowing that there is a certain time to get it done, they become very anxious. And so we have to provide accommodation for those students to allow them to still demonstrate that they have the capacity, that they've understood the concepts, and that they're able to move on to the next level. There's a lot of conversation right now across the United States, across the world, about how people learn. And this whole matter of education from the 14th century that we still have going along with us, where we go to school from September until May, and then we have a full break over the summer. Many of our people, we will lose a lot of time over the summer. We have a full semester, summer, and we go right down until close to Christmas time in our semester, and have short courses that run for 8 weeks also at any one time, and different modes and modalities that would respond to the learning needs of various people based on where they are and their capacity to learn. But that conversation, even through, if you read, look at the Chronicle of Higher Education, that's foremost in this and a number of other areas. There's a lot of conversation around the matter of credentialing, stackable credentials, short courses. And many institutions are doing that even now to help to bridge that gap and to see how, even if it's from a pilot standpoint, others have just jumped in wholesale and said, this is what we're going to do. A lot of that is occurring right now. And more you will find that more businesses will be moving in that direction. I was at a meeting in Virginia about a year or two ago when Amazon was going through the selection period of where H2, their second headquarters on the East Coast would be. They eventually decided for Virginia, where in the Crystal City area, where they have now renamed to call it National Landing. And the HR director was saying, we are looking for anybody, whether you have a high school diploma, a credential, a bachelor's, associate, master's, or doctoral degree, you're going to start with us for 6 figures. All we want to know is that you know how to do the job. And more individuals look in that direction. When I interview individuals at my level for vice presidents, there is a search committee that will go through all of the preliminary work through an HR department. Other officers will interview those individuals, initially look at qualifications, everything, and then say, Mr. President, here are our top 3 candidates. Where is a pool of 15, 18, 20, 30 or more? This is our top 3. When they come to me, all I do is have a conversation with them. I'm not asking them about their qualifications or anything. Our team, they have already done that work. And they're saying, look, these people have what it takes to make it work. But I'm going to choose or select only one of those 3. So we talk about different things, about life, about how they handle issues, how they get along with others. If they have a home or a family, they'll tell me about that. We will talk about their future, their ambitions, different things, their attitudes to work and to interaction with others. All of those types of skills that I would figure that we would need to be effective and to carry the work of the university forward. That's what I talk with them about, and then make my decision. The other members of the team, they go into all of the details, the qualifications. They have a long list of questions, but I have conversations with those individuals. And as they talk, I'm learning and knowing, yes, that's favorable. Within my mind, no, this is not favorable. And then we'll be able to make the appropriate decision at the end of the day. So it's important for us. And if I look back here, the norm for micro-credentials, yes, that's coming along even more. Cultural approaches to learning, they are different. But the more we can learn just from the example that you shared there of playing pool, shooting pool, okay, or being on the football field and drawing the analogies. And as I said earlier, using portion control to help to teach different concepts. All of these avenues are out there, but we need our authorities, our regulators, even from an accreditation standpoint, they are still operating in a different frame. And I know that. I'm an accreditation evaluator myself, led many site visit teams to universities across the US. And I know what we look for. Worked with Baldridge on the board of examiners for many years. And these are things that we look for. So it is going to call for some concerted work and courage from a few to initially step out there and begin to do these things so that we can have the data and the results to show the difference as a result of the additional approaches taken to address the issues that are before us. I hope I was able to respond to your questions.
I believe that you did, Len.
Is it worldwide then? That's the first question. As far as the decrease in boys in enrollment, is this worldwide?
No, you wouldn't find it worldwide in all areas based on the discipline. In some areas like the technical disciplines, engineering, you would still find quite a number of men moving in that area, although the ratios are quite close now, where women are close to overtaking men in those areas. And you find that more like in China, in Japan, and some other jurisdictions where you would still find a number of men leading in certain areas. But when you look at it, the world as a whole, when you put that cluster, you still have the situation of where the women, and all of this has come about when you look at many laws around the world through the United Nations, and how nations have different countries need to sign on to different new rules and regulations. You can't get money unless you show that so many women are being helped, okay? That so many children are being assisted with a number of the grants that are out there. even for research, and to ensure that when the World Bank gives money, I was in DC just the other day with talks at the World Bank with the Minister of Industry and Trade of Jamaica, Industry and Commerce, where we spoke with the International Finance Corporation, the IDB, Inter-American Development Bank, and others, and follow-up conversations. But to get a lot of these funds, there are a number of other factors that are brought to play. Even from the standpoint of the US government, I was able several years ago to get the largest grant in the history of the University of the Virgin Islands. It among that, initial sum was $28.6 million US. And then we got an additional 4.2 million after that for medical simulation center and medical research and training facility. But I had to demonstrate in that there were provisions for women, for minorities, for different classifications that were going to benefit as a result of the monies being released from the US Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration. So there are numerous regulations in there that require the satisfaction of those requirements from a United Nations standpoint that really propelled women way up to the top. And although you have some jurisdictions now, like in Afghanistan, where women are being denied access to education and a number of other things, it is still where men in those areas are being pushed. But that's more like an anomaly and not the regular as would normally occur in numerous other jurisdictions. Yes, Judy.
I have a follow-up question. So it seems like if we think about the way at least America was, a man without a college education for the most part could make a good living, like in manufacturing and things like that, which have all gone by the wayside. So do you foresee then maybe the funding will change in order to promote the men coming back to college? Do you see that coming?
Yeah, there is a very good possibility of that happening. And because of the realities that are around us, we just need to do a better job using the data and writing convincing stories to the donors to be able to demonstrate why we need these things to happen. Yes, we'll be writing grants to support the male initiative, and we would need to be able to demonstrate with the statistics in Jamaica and across the region why we need to begin to zero in again on our men, because we are losing our men, we are losing our societies, and we need to have balance in our societies.
Thank you. You've answered my question.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, colleagues, we were supposed to have been on platform for 2 hours, and we have gone over, and it looks as if we could go on for more. And it only goes to show the quality of the man who God has blessed and has sent our way today. He has kept our interest, but not only so because he has been blessed, but because there is an important conversation that must be had by those of us who are in a position to influence change, to see what we can do to be our brother's keeper. No pun intended. Well, perhaps pun intended. We really have to be our brother's keeper. We're losing our men. And it's not just a societal mishappening. It is a deliberate strategy of Satan, because he knows the purpose for which God has made the man. He also knows the purpose God has made the woman. But if he can knock the head, then he can always do whatever will happen to defame and deface the image of God in society. And men, whether we like it or not, whether our women support it or not, we have been placed on earth to lead. And where there is a dearth of leadership, then our women are going to have to pick up the slack. And so I want to use this opportunity to thank all the godly women on this platform and those we know for standing in the gap where leadership vacuums exist, and for doing what you do to support our men who do take up the mantle, because this is a union of both. But the challenge that we have, colleagues, is that for whatever reason, societal or otherwise, our men are disappearing from this stage of leadership. And for those of us who remain, we must do what we can to influence change and to get our men back up where they belong. So I'd like to thank the godly man who has led our discussion this evening, Professor Haldane Davies, for standing up where God has asked you to lead and for leading so effectively. I'd like to thank the other godly man on this platform, Marcel Sutherland, for accepting the mantle that God has placed on his shoulders to put together Friends Talking. I'd like to thank Leon Wellington and Lenny and Derval and Paul and Pastor Dorset and Ray for supporting this important weekly ministry. I'd like to thank Wendy and Paula, and I believe there was another lady who has since left.
Judith
And
Bacala.
Yes, for supporting us men. And yes, here she is right beside Len. Len's prettier half, for standing in the gap beside us in our ministry. We pray that God will use this platform and use our men and our women to witness for him in a profound way, so that when he comes, he will find us not wanting. He will find us having done our part. He will find us faithful, so that he can say when he comes, well done, Haldane, Lenny, Wendy, Leon, Pastor Dorset, Ray, Paula, Carlo, Paul, Derval, and whoever is IFO.
Jean.
You have done a good work. You have done a good work. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Lenny,
Well, Errol, because you got in the calling names, let's not forget Jean Thornton, who is also here with us.
thank you so much, Marcel, for reminding me about Jean. As we close, I'm going to ask my friend Lenny to pray a prayer of thanksgiving to God, to pray a prayer of blessing on Haldane and all of us, and to thank God for his goodness as we depart from this platform. Lenny?
Shall we bow our head? Dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this group of men that we are part of. We're thankful for the roles that you've given us, the leadership and the jobs and the opportunities you've given us to reach out to others. We're asking you to especially continue to be with this group, be with the leadership of the group, help that we may be able to expand in such a manner that we may be even a greater blessing to those out there who are in need, especially the young men. Continue to be with Dr. Davies. We're so thankful for the leadership position that you've put him in, that he is able to touch so many lives in such a positive way. And we can see the repercussions already floating out and the effects it's having on even us in different countries. We thank you for him. Continue to bless his ministry. Bless all the ministries of every individual here, the men and the women on the chat today. These things we ask in thy name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
And I would be remiss if I did not remember to thank those who joined us also on YouTube for being with us and for spreading the link wherever you are. May God continue to bless you. Marcel, over to you for the last word.
Thank you, Errol. Professor Haldane, Professor Davies, listen, I think you are the second time we have gone this much overtime.
Wow.
And we thank you for that. It tells you of the interest. And we certainly will be in touch with you. As I said at the top of the program, we are considering turning this this forum into a 501c3. And if it does happen, you can rest assured that you have men here who will be available at your disposal to be utilized in whatever way we can be of help. Be it mentors, teachers, lecturers, whatever way we can help. And some of them also have a few bob. So, oh, sorry, that's English. Some of them have a few dollars, so you may be able to call upon them.
Certainly, certainly.
Okay, gentlemen, next week, you will see in the chat who we have for next week. I'm in consultation with the person who's supposed to be on for next week, but not sure as yet. So I'll give you more information in the chat. Until then, enjoy the rest of the Sabbath, and God bless you all. Have a
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Don't mention Professor.
Master, we hope that you will soon recover fully from your COVID so that you can be back to normal. You're looking good already. I can see that God is blessing.
Thank you, Errol. Thank you. Much appreciated. And thanks, guys, for reaching out. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks
Dr.
again.
Haldane, God bless you. Hurry back to Jamaica. Have safe
Sure.
travels.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Bless you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.